Hey parents, Dr. Garrett here from Foundation Chiropractic, and today I'm kind of doing an impromptu webinar, an anxiety webinar. We've been having a lot of kids, but especially girls, coming in lately to the office with a lot of anxiety, and I have a real passion for helping these kids, these girls in particular. Boys too, but we see it a lot with girls. So if I kind of hedge towards girls a lot during this webinar, I apologize. So yeah, I'm kind of doing an impromptu one. I did take some notes this morning because I want to make sure I get my points across so everything makes sense. So I hope you find this information valuable, and please don't ever hesitate to reach out if you have questions. A couple things: I am at the office. We are closed Thursday mornings, so if the phone rings, I do apologize for that. We'll just kind of bear through it and keep chugging along. So what do we know about anxiety? Anxiety is dysfunction or dysregulation within their nervous system. What am I talking about when I say the nervous system? I'm talking about the brain, the spinal cord, and the spinal nerves. Specifically, so Bruce Lipton, he's a PhD biologist. What Bruce Lipton says is the function of your nervous system is to perceive the environment and coordinate behavior, right? Well, what are anxiety kiddos doing? Right? They're falsely perceiving their environment. That's why they have the anxiety behavior, right? They're thinking like things like school, right, are threatening when really they're not. They're thinking extracurricular activities, whether that be sports, whether that be band, chorus, right, things like that, are threatening when they're not, right? So they're perceiving these environments as stressful when the reality they're not. So they're acting anxious because of these environments that are actually not, that shouldn't cause anxiety. And the big one that really impacts me is how this impacts relationships as far as friendships, right? So many girls we see in this office that are struggle forming relationships because of this anxiety, and friendships isn't what life's all about, but it's what life's a lot about, right? I mean, forming friendships, going through life with those that you love and trust and all that sort of thing. So that's a big one that really hits home to me, is helping these girls and boys form these relationships. So that's what's going on with anxiety, right? They're perceiving non-stressful environments as stressful, and therefore they're acting with anxiety. When they have this false perception, right, this stressful perception, their body goes into stress mode. Their sympathetic nervous system engages. They go into what's called fight or flight mode, okay? When that happens, pupils dilate, you can have like heart palpitations, people can fidget, they become really sweaty, things like that. That's when you know your body's in fight or flight mode, okay? So let me kind of take a step back. There's two modes to your nervous system, okay? You have a sympathetic mode and a parasympathetic mode. And I'm going to show you those right here in a little bit. Your parasympathetic mode is known as rest and digest. It's calm and collected, okay? Your sympathetic nervous system, which is what I'm talking about here with anxiety, that is fight or flight mode, okay? That's when stressful situations occur and you go to fight or flight mode, right? Like I said, your pupils dilate, your heart starts pumping, things like that. What's an example of when that system engages? Let's say you guys go out camping and a pack of wolves show up, right? You have two options. You can fight the wolves, or you can flight, you can run away. So what happens is your pupils dilate, your heart starts pumping, right? Because you're either running or you're fighting. All other systems slow down. A couple examples: digestion and immune system function. Why? Your body's very, very smart. When you're in sympathetic mode, you don't have time to stop and digest food, to stop and go to the bathroom, right? If a pack of wolves are chasing you, you don't have time to do that, right? So your body shuts down digestion, or really slows it down. Same with immune function. When your body's really, really stressed out, fight or flight mode, there's a lot of inflammation. The immune system can kind of go haywire as well. So it's okay to be in sympathetic mode, fight or flight mode, every once in a while. If a pack of wolves are chasing you, sympathetic mode is fine. The problem is when you get locked into that mode, when you're in that mode every single day, all day long, okay? So what we want is balance between the two. This right here is parasympathetic, just so you know. This right here is sympathetic, right? Depending on what life's throwing at you, you'll be in one mode versus the other, right? If life's cool, calm, and collected, you're perceiving your environment as not stressful, you'll be in parasympathetic mode. That's where we want to spend 80 to 90% of our day, right? Not stressed out. Stress is horrible for you. 10% of the time we can be in sympathetic mode. That's right. That's when there's actually like something life-threatening occurring. You can go into sympathetic mode. You need to fight or flight. You need to survive. So like I said, having both and being able to go back and forth between the two is awesome. The problem is when these kids get locked into sympathetic mode. So there's not a balance, right? It's pegged way down here. All the weight's on their sympathetic mode. They're stuck in fight or flight. How does that happen? Right? How does that happen? How can a kid become stuck in fight or flight mode? Well, excuse me, nerves, we use a bunch of analogies and phrases in our office. Nerves that fire together wire together. What that means is you can become programmed right? To be stuck in sympathetic mode. Just like you can go to the gym, right? Train really hard and train your body to be happier and healthier. Your body can actually be programmed the opposite way as well, to be stressed out and things like that. So what causes us to be chronically stressed out? There's three things: chemical, emotional, and physical stress. Okay, chemical stress is a whole nother topic for a whole nother time, right? But if you think about it, chemical stress is everywhere around us. I'm talking about the air that you breathe. I'm talking about the things you put on your body, the things you put in your body, right? It's everywhere around us. So, but like I said, that's another talk for another time. Emotional stress, I think this is absolutely huge, especially when it comes to, forming relationships and friendships, right? It's very, very stressful to fit in socially. Nowadays, what's pushed even harder than ever? Academics, right? Academic success, athletic success. There's just a whole lot of emotional stress bombarding our kids these days. And then the last one I would say is, back on the emotional one, social media. Technology is awesome when used correctly, but social media we're so much more connected, yet so much more disconnected, right? Like, when do we actually hold true conversations anymore, right? Everything's through social media, and the ability to have social media to, bully people and things like that. So that's another huge emotional stress, right? The social aspect and all that sort of stuff. Third one is physical trauma. I'm talking birth trauma. I'm talking childhood slips and falls. I'm talking growth spurts like puberty, right? Right around that age 8 to 12, when a lot of hormones are changing in these females, right? A lot of things are starting to go on. They can kind of become, very, very nervous, very kind of introverted, things like that. So those three things, which start constantly bombarding our kids, if you have those stressors every single day of your life, all day of your life, you're going to become wired to be stressed out, okay? Regardless of the stressor, whether it's a chemical stress, an emotional stress, or a physical stress, your body responds the same way. It goes into fight or flight mode. When you're stressed out, you're in fight or flight mode. Whether it be chemical stress, emotional stress, it doesn't matter. Your body goes into fight or flight mode. And if you're like that all the time, your body's constantly releasing cortisol, and your body's constantly saying it's stressed out, your brain's constantly saying it's stressed out, guess what? You become programmed, just like if you went to the gym and worked out, you become programmed to be stressed out, okay? That is anxiety at its core. It's these kiddos that are stuck in fight or flight mode. They're totally stressed out. And when they're totally stressed out, just think of basically like a stressful brain, right? A noisy brain. When your brain's stressed out, when your nervous system's stressed out, you're going to perceive things as stressful when really they're not, right? Like I said at the beginning, those friendships, those extracurricular activities, whether that be sports, athletics, things like that, those aren't stressful situations. They shouldn't be perceived as stressful. I do apologize for the phone ringing in the background. Okay, so that's anxiety at its core. That's how they get stuck there, these chemical, physical, and emotional stressors. How do we get them unstuck, okay? Well, what we know is your nervous system, your brain loves movement, okay? Movement charges your brain's batteries. It's positive input to your brain. Just like if you would go to the gym and start exercising, right? How do you feel after you exercise? You feel great from a mental standpoint. Sometimes you can be really, really tired from a physical standpoint. But mentally you feel great. Why? You moved and you sent good, what's called proprioceptive input to your brain. That input charges your brain's batteries. It's very, very calming. It decreases stress, okay? So, kind of take a quick step back. At any given time, your brain is either receiving one of two signals. Proprioceptive signals, which is the good, healthy brain food based on movement, or stressful signals. It's called nociception. So your brain's either receiving proprioception, good, healthy brain food, or nociception, noise, stress. What do we want more of reaching our brain? Yeah, proprioception, right? So the more proprioception reaching the brain, the happier, healthier the brain's going to be, the calmer the brain's going to be. And if the brain's calmer, guess what? The brain's going to perceive things like, environments, classroom, friendships, extracurricular activities as non-stressful. And if they perceive those as non-stressful, guess what? They're going to coordinate non-stressful behavior. They're going to coordinate and not have anxiety, okay? Well, guess what? 60% of proprioceptive input, so 60% of good, healthy, nutritious brain food comes from movement of your spine. So yes, 60% of input to the brain is determined by the spine. So yes, regardless of what you maybe heard, the spine, the health of your spine has a direct impact on the health of your brain. And I have all the research to support that. So when your spine, all these spinal joints that you see here are moving happy, healthy, and freely, guess what? Your brain's naturally going to be getting really good input to it. However, remember I talked about that physical stress, that physical trauma? When your spine has misalignments in it, like let's say this joint right here, and that's not moving, guess what? If your spine's a disaster, and I'll kind of talk about this next, and it's not moving freely, that means your brain's not getting as good input as it needs to, right? Proprioceptive input's going down, so therefore nociception, or the stressful input, has to go up. So the purpose of adjustments in this office, it's not like your typical office that's trying to get joints moving, right, to get people out of pain. It's to start adjusting these kids, to start restoring motion in the spine, to start driving good proprioceptive input to the brain. So when you adjust these kids, we call it tapping the brakes, right? Their engine, their brain is very, very noisy. It's go, go, go. We adjust them. We drive good input to the brain, and we call it tapping the brakes. We slow the brain down for that brief point in time. You bring them back a day or two later, we do it again. It takes some time and repetition, don't get me wrong. But just like they've been stressed out for 3, 4, 5, 10, 15 years of their life, we need to slowly bring them back to balance, that pendulum, right? Get them back to balance between sympathetic and parasympathetic. So that's what the adjustments can do. Taking a quick step back, parents often ask me, because a lot of parents that come in here are very, very well educated. They've looked out for a bunch of resources. They say, well, why would my child have a misalignment in their spine? Right? They've never been in a car accident. They've never played football, things like that. Well, I talked about this a little bit earlier with that physical trauma. Birth trauma is one. Undiagnosed birth trauma is very, very common. Okay, about 80% of kids are born with misalignments in their spine that go undiagnosed. Because if you think about it, I mean, birth is very, very natural, but in certain situations it can be very, very traumatic, right? Big baby, small exit, right? Something's got to give type of a thing. And what we kind of find is, those struggling ones where they're more like emergency C-section, maybe forceps, stuff like that. Those are obviously a little bit more traumatic on the neck of the baby. So that's just one. And then how many times do kids slip and fall, right? Trying to walk or crawl, right? Playing sports, soccer, they fall in all the time. Baseball, trip over the base, right? There's all these, there's not necessarily one big trauma. There's all these micro traumas that build up over time. And so much brain development happens those first 3, 5, 7 years of your life. If your spine's a disaster, right, from all these micro traumas, if you have chemical stress everywhere around you, if you have emotional stress, guess what? You're going to be wired, you're going to be pegged on that sympathetic side of things. So taking a quick step back, the whole purpose of adjustments in this office is to restore motion at the joint, to start driving that good proprioceptive input to the brain. And when we do that, we start driving that good proprioceptive input. With time, we can take these kids that are sympathetic and bring them back to that parasympathetic mode where they start perceiving things appropriately, start coordinating things appropriately, and start behaving better, okay, as far as anxiety, right? So, some common signs, some common things to look for. Big one, sleep. So if you have to put your children down like 3 hours before bed and they don't fall asleep until 3 hours, if you want to go to bed at 10 and you're putting them to bed at 7, they just can't wind down, what's that a sign of? It's a sign that their brain's going 100 miles an hour, right? It's a sign that they're in fight or flight mode. Their brain's very, very stressed out. Or if they wake up and they're very, very, very crabby, which, you got to kind of take that, be judgy. Sometimes nobody wants to wake up real early, right? But if it's every single day, it's probably that they're so wired that even though they're sleeping, they're not sleeping very well, right? Their brain's still going 100 miles an hour. And there might even be night terrors as well. So first thing to look for is sleep. Check on the sleep. Emotions, emotional highs and lows. Once again, I'm kind of talking towards girls, but guys too. Girls often get glued to their mom, right? They can't leave their mom. The mom can't drop them off from school. The mom can't leave ballet. She can't leave tumbling because there is just, the girl is so, emotionally pegged to her mom, right? So that's a very, very common one. They can't separate. A third one would be fidgeting type stuff. Kids can lick their lips. Kids can kind of have some, some sensory type things, bite their fingers, motor tics, things like that. Here's why. It's a sensory thing. If your brain's really, really stressed out, your brain doesn't want to be stressed out, okay? It does. It wants to be on parasympathetic mode. It wants to be calm. But if all these stressors have led your brain to be stressed out, your brain wants good input, right? So what it's going to do is it's going to try and find other sensory things to try and help drive input to it, like the biting their fingernails, right? Licking their lips, things like that, fidgeting. What they're trying to do is, since their spine's unhealthy and they're not getting that good proprioceptive input, they're trying to get it from somewhere else, right? They're sensory seeking. They're trying to drive good input to their brain in some other way, shape, or form to start calming that brain down. So pay attention to that. Fourth thing to look for would be digestive and immune function. I talked about this when I was talking about fight or flight mode, and if you're running from that pack of wolves, the digestive system slows down. So a lot of times girls, they won't want to go, or even kids, right? They won't want to go to the bathroom. They get stomach cramps. The immune system's, so when your brain's stressed out, your entire body's inflamed. Well, what is asthma and allergies, right? That's basically inflammation of your immune system, right? For sure. So that's another thing to look for. If your kids are chronically sick, allergies, asthma, chronic ear infections, if they don't want to go to the bathroom, if they're constipated, all signs their body's so stressed out, they're not adapting to their environment the way that they should. And the fifth thing is that social aspect. And this one really hits me the hardest. Like I said, we have so many kids that come in here and they don't have friends. They don't have sleepovers, right? And I mean, this is stuff that like, we take for granted. Like we were having sleepovers all the time when I was a kid, right? And it really hits the hardest. So socially, if your child's afraid to go to a friend's house, if your child's afraid to have sleepovers, I mean, sure sign, socially, brain-wise, they're definitely stressed out. They definitely have anxiety, and we got to get these kids calmed down. We got to get these kids pegged back to the parasympathetic side of things. So some action steps, 3 action steps. Routine is best. Okay, I know it's hard, especially with the school year just starting up, right? And it takes time, right? It takes trial and error and things like that, but get these kids into a routine the best that you can. And that routine should include chiropractic, right? Get these kids adjusted. Second thing, get these kids out and moving, okay? You probably noticed during the summer, anxiety was maybe less with your children. Why? They're not sitting at a desk all day, right? They don't have their tablet and their iPhone all the time. You're out playing, you're doing sports, you're getting these kids out moving, driving proprioceptive input to the brain, right? 60% comes from the spine, so let me handle that. But even just going out and playing, right, they're going to get 40% of other good input from their brain by just getting out and moving. So drop the iPad. Dads, moms, this is your time to act like a kid. Go out, crawl around, jump on the trampoline, play tag, play hide and seek, whatever. Get these kids out, get them moving. Third thing, highly encourage the movement, right? You can get these kids out running around. That's a good coping strategy to help kind of feed the brain and calm it for a second. But if you want to really truly get down to the root cause of this and really get these kids, to adapt better to daily stress, get these kids adjusted, right? There's nothing more powerful than the chiropractic adjustment to start restoring motion in the spinal joints, start driving good input to the brain, and just really attack this from a neurological level, right? That is anxiety at its core. It's neurological. So if you're going to improve it, you have to improve the way the nervous system functions. That's what we do in our office every single day, and we'd love the opportunity to help. So if you have questions, comments, or concerns, please comment below. Reach out to us, give us a call, shoot us a message, whatever it takes. We're here to help in any way that we can. And yeah, I hope you found this information valuable. Take care. Have a great Labor Day weekend, guys. We'll see you later.